This is something that just sparked off a kind of like a random conversation with my co-founder, actually.
I'm calling it the AI jury. It stems from my passion for the last year of watching a ton of true crime on Netflix.
This one's a bit of a personal one. So I've been in Vietnam for 2 years as a nomad.
A usual situation, I was talking to a startup in the portfolio, and one of their key metrics had been trending down for a while. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the $1 Million Ideas podcast. Today, we have a special guest with us, Darryl Han, who is the co-founder of a travel startup called LFG. With me also is my co-host, Ken Lever, and I'm really looking forward to this one because there's another set of diverse ideas to be discussed today. So how's everyone doing? Darryl, welcome to the show.
Hey, Usman. Hey, Ken. Thanks for having me on board. Exciting to finally. I've seen a few episodes, so this is pretty cool to be here.
Thanks for supporting the channel. Early days of the channel, so any support is good, and I'm glad that you liked the videos. How's it going, Ken? How's your week coming along?
Yeah, good. Good to see Darryl. We met in person a couple months back, but
yeah, it's been a while now.
Yeah, that's cool. Like, the entrepreneurship community, again, in Bangkok has matured, I think, over the last couple of years, right? Like, I think there are a set number of people there. Are there a lot more people moving there or not so many?
I think there's a couple of groups that have really evolved to be bigger in the last couple of years. And I think they're also benefiting from the fact that now there's this nomad visa. So I think in Thailand in general, is just getting more and more entrepreneurs. And I think one guy that's helping fuel this, which I've heard several people name, is Peter Levels. So Peter Levels is kind of blown up, and he's famous for having camped out in Thailand, in Bangkok.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I saw that they were all in Singapore like 3-4 days ago for the Balaji was running the Network State Conference in Singapore. And those videos were pretty interesting with the ideas that they have. But talking about ideas, so as usual, we're going to be discussing 4 ideas today. And to kick us off, Darryl, do you want to get us started with your first idea?
Yeah, cool. Alrighty. So this is something that just sparked off a kind of like a random conversation with my co-founder, actually. So it's a gaming. It's revolved around esports and gaming. So my co-founder and I, we casually game a lot, quite a bit. We play Dota 2, really just for stress relief. I've been playing Dota since high school. I don't know if you guys play it or have touched it at all. But, basically it started off with finding game sessions sometimes with others can be hard at times, and we don't find everyone for a match. Obviously the match can't kick off. And then, we also talk about predictive modeling and everything, which my co-founder gets quite involved with like the big tournaments and everything. We're watching these tournaments and stuff, and we wondered if there was sort of like an accessible sort of micro tournaments, right, for everyday gamers to maybe, earn, get rewarded as well. Because, we see these big ones. Obviously, these guys are pros. They were talking millions of dollars, big sponsorships. And, I think about like just Southeast Asia, right? I think there's a lack of, sort of accessible, frequent, and, sort of secure opportunities for people to, just monetize their skills through like little competitions, right? So the idea, really, I'm calling it GG.ez for now, which is a gaming term, good game, easy, and all like an esports tournament platform, where people can join micro tournaments, skill-based games, Dota, League of Legends, Clash of Clans, Valorant, whatnot, and just join it, compete, win daily cash prizes or rewards. So imagine you're just playing a game that you're already going to play anyways. All you have to do is sync your account to this platform. You join the tournament and you could potentially earn something for something you're going to be doing already. So that's sort of like the gist of the idea there.
Nice. I briefly played Dota for a while, so I get the whole sort of like matching, and you got to get all your friends on the platform, and then you got to like
the LAN parties.
So you got to go together. But I think what interests me in this is that all of these games already have such large and fanatical player bases, right? And so you're right, like the Invitational is like right up there, but like, would you personally sort of like put money into a pot before you guys are playing, or is this, you imagine it somewhere else, like a team would put money and then let's say you match up with some other team which matches that?
It could be like that, honestly. It could be a team thing. It could be an individual thing. And I'm talking like small dollars here. Like, you know, the whole point is to kind of decentralize it to some extent from like the big $1 million kind of like pots, right? So it's like, it can be micro, it can be a couple dollars. So I don't see why not. And, you know, of course, if this platform kicks off, the idea is like, you know, obviously there'd be like some sponsors who, you know, will put in the money, like that put in the cash prize itself too and everything. Or it could even be the reward itself might not even need to be cash, right? It could be collectibles, could be skins, it could be, you know, like in-game sort of items. So I think there's definitely space to explore around the reward space.
It started like reminding me about like back in the day, there was online poker was a huge sort of like deal. It's got a lot more regulated now, but there used to be these micro tournaments. So poker, very similar to Dota, had these really big tournaments. They still have them. And what they had were these really micro tournaments called sit and goes, where essentially you would pay anywhere from $2 to $4 to $5 to $10. And there was a scale, right? And then people would pay into these things. And then basically when the table was full, the tournament would start. And it actually did fantastically well. One of the bigger companies in this space has continually sort of like gone and minted money in this space. So I can definitely see how a business could be built around it. And Dota is just one type of game, right? Once you have this mechanic built in, whether it's CS, whether it's Call of Duty or anything that you want to play, team on team or one-on-one, you can actually put that in.
True. I remember the Zynga Texas poker game. Are you talking about that as well on Facebook in the early days?
Yeah, exactly, right? And then like you mentioned, you could abstract the money with coins, and then to make this idea even more relevant in today's day and age, you would sort of like put a crypto spin on it, and then you would have your own coins and stuff like that. And that would be pretty cool, because I think once you can abstract money to coins, then the sending it around and moving it around from player to player, which is what Zynga essentially did. The challenge with the online poker happened because I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, there was this Russian bot farm which figured out like they got their AI to a level that it was starting to beat the best players in online poker. And that's basically what killed online poker now, because these bots have become so smart and they're so optimized. Every bet is so high EV that it's like impossible. If you make one mistake, you're dead.
Yeah, that's funny. I met a guy, I think through Lunch Club, and he was deep into AI and data, and he built his own kind of AI bot that could work on certain poker sites. And he said he was making good money, just like sitting back, letting this bot win him money every week. So I was like, wow. One thing, I don't know this space super deeply, but a couple things that came to mind. One is like in the US, many states have legalized online gambling. And so a lot of casino gambling is moving from these Indian reservations to online. So I think that's getting quite popular in certain places. And I think like being able to do those little gambling on some of these games that are so popular is a massive opportunity if it's not being tapped, you know, and smaller bets. The other thing is I was helping this NFT client, and so I know like, you know, there's this idea of earning through NFTs in games, and there's these NFT games. So I think I think there's something there. Like I think using the popular games, smaller bets between, you know, just peers, not people that are huge. It doesn't seem like someone's really tapped that yet, but there's an opportunity.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, I think with the whole gambling and like kind of like the sports betting and stuff, I guess if we want to start in Southeast Asia, like part of it will be to really we got to start in a market where like this can sort of like have the easier sort of like legal entry and whatnot. No, I think Singapore might be a bit difficult in that sense. That there might be some I think there's some regulations around like even cash prizes. There's like maybe like a limit on anything. I think that's something definitely has to be looked into as one of the first steps.
Yeah, the abstraction though that Zynga did, right? From you buy coins that the whole deal is when you deposit and then you sort of like withdraw the money. So if you deposit, you buy coins and then you live your life over there, that could work. This is an interesting sort of like side sort of like thing. But one of the interesting markets in the Southeast Asian and extended regions that has recently legalized sort of like online gambling is Philippines. And they actually have regulation around it. And it's actually become a really big sort of like business. And so, yeah. And by the way, that market is obsessed with Dota as well. So
yeah. They're one of the, when I did my research, they're one of the largest gaming markets in Southeast Asia, actually. Like, I think number 4, I think. So definitely that could be a first market entry. We're talking Southeast Asia, potentially.
And the last bit about this is, I don't know whether you guys, so everyone knows Twitch and things like that, but there's another online gaming sort of like website, which is huge, absolutely, called stake.com. Back in the day, I saw like Drake or someone on Twitch. He was playing stake and then he was betting, he was online gambling, and he was live streaming. It became huge. It drew massive amounts of viewers. And then basically, I think Twitch basically said that this is against terms of service. You can't be doing this stuff. And I think these guys launched something called Kick or something. I heard it on the MFM podcast. And now they're paying like streamers like 5 million, 10 million to just come play on their platform and just play and stream. So the numbers in this are just become astronomical when you get it right.
Very interesting. Drake's definitely a known gambler. Everyone knows of his sport betting and everything too. But yeah, I mean, I think the advantage of this too is just the gaming community, like as a whole, like they're a very sticky community anyway. So and once you penetrate it, that's it, right? You just got to keep growing around that community and expanding through there. So it's an interesting thought. It's an interesting one.
Oh, cool. I liked it. We haven't done a gaming idea before, so I enjoy discussing it because I think like the space is huge. And if you get the mechanics right, naturally seeding, getting it right, I would start a one game. I would get a couple of sponsors. I would have prizes so that people come to the platform and then stick around. But I think there's definitely something there. So, all right, with idea number 1 down. So Ken, do you want to take us to idea number 2?
Yeah. So my idea, I'm calling it the AI jury. And it stems from my passion for the last year of watching a ton of true crime on Netflix. So I think I've consumed like all the true crime on Netflix, which I never really expected because I was never like a true crime fan. But, when you're watching a lot of this true crime, like you're in the courtroom for a good part of it where they're trying the person. And I feel like when you watch so much true crime, you're just like, wow, there's so much human fallibility in these decisions that they're making, right? And so one in particular, I was watching this one about Gabriel Fernandez was a young child that was kind of killed by his parents or the guy that was married to his mom. And it was very clear to me that it was second-degree murder. And in the jury, like there was one guy who also had the same opinion of me. Like he was like, yeah, second-degree murder. And then like they go away for 2 more days and like the rest of the jury just like hammered him down so that he agreed with everyone else that it was first-degree murder. And I was like, wow, like this is so wrong. Like the guy. So yeah, I just think that this is a major opportunity for AI and that, AI will be much more consistent about the rulings than humans will. So the idea here is to create a platform that creates an AI jury, can kind of be in the courtroom, listen to everything, and then make a judgment that is consistent with all the other judgments that is made in the past. And I just think that would be so much fairer than the system that you see now in the US.
First question that came to my mind was like, if you watched all the true crime on Netflix, which is the best show that you watched on Netflix? So if you wanted to get into it, like...
Well, I really enjoyed Dahmer. And now I'm watching, like, the maker of Dahmer made this new one about the Fernandez. I forget. It's about two young guys, but it's hilarious. Like, these two young guys who, like, killed their parents. They shot their, like, father's face off. And then, like, they just, like, yeah. But then they were, like, just chilling, like, had all this money and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Funny, I just watched a Netflix one. What Jennifer did. You guys know about that story about the Vietnamese girl who basically plotted her parents' murder. But like you said, there were some immediate suspicious points that, you know, took the police a couple of days to kind of figure that. But, you know, like, you know, there were immediate points where you're like, wait, how are you calling 911 if you were, you know, like tied together and stuff? So that's very interesting.
That was a good one.
I wonder how you get it around the moral basis sort of like questions, because essentially an AI is trained on data, right, which has inherent biases. So what you were explaining was like human biases in some shape or form. Our past paints the future, and in some shape or degree. And I wonder how you think about, like, do you think AI is fair? Because I think there's a lot of debate going on around as to how AI should think and who should tell it how it should think. Or do you think, like, in the future, this will resolve itself?
I think if you fed it all the past court decisions as a basis and used that to train the model on what was fair, that would give you a decent start.
I think to a larger scale, right, this AI jury can definitely be, you know, it can definitely have impact in terms of consistency, cost savings too, for, you know, for the court, as we kind of like, you know, looked into as well. But I think there are certain cases whereby I don't think you can solely rely on an AI jury. I think there might be like some really complex cases where it will require some level of human input still. I think, but at least for now, AI, I don't think has reached that level to really, you know, dig deeper into certain human complexities, emotions, like intentions as well. So yeah, that's
one thing I would challenge is, like, does it need to understand emotions, or should it be much more just fact-based? You know, like, I have a feeling the decisions you'll get from an AI are just much more fact-based and consistent. And, you know, should you sway a jury with emotion and how well the lawyer spoke? Like, I don't think so.
I can completely sort of like see, before I get to court cases, like, I feel like other sort of like fines that governments give out, whether they should not, like when it's close or things like that. I feel like you can embed this in multiple different sort of like areas where you get challenged on certain sort of like things. And you could do this. I think, like, insurance claims could be a very interesting sort of like first place to put this in, right? So an insurance claim is like, I remember I went on a trip once and we were staying at this place. It was like a Airbnb place, and it had a safe. And I put money into the safe, and then we had gone out, and ta-da! When we came back, the money was gone. So then we went to the police station and said, okay, so this happened, got a police report, told my insurer, and then they had 7 million questions, and you can clearly see, like, you know, I submitted everything and I didn't get a clear yes, no, I got dragged on. So in those sort of cases, you can do this. I think medical reimbursement is another one, which sort of like, who has ever read every single page of their medical insurance contract? It's just not possible. It would be cool for us to have that read the contract before we do the expense, ask AI whether can I expense this or can I not expense this. But even when it's close, I think like that impartiality could be like pretty interesting in those two cases.
Yeah, 100. I think like all these smaller claims and like you get a lot more cases because now the cost of the lawyer and whatnot would be gone.
In Singapore, you also have the small claims court and stuff like that. Like, these are not the big ones, but this is where someone is, you know, this person owes me $5,000 or something like that, and you're challenging them. Like, the judge is there, but could you have like someone sort of like doing it? I don't know how I would feel if a AI judge or a AI jury would give me a verdict in that sort of like case, right? Like, how would you feel?
Yeah, but the micro ones, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel a bit. Well, I was in that position. I feel like it's a little over the top. I'm not sure. That's just my opinion. But I guess that kind of angle that you did speak of before, whereby I don't. Let's be honest. Like, I'm not gonna read all the pages of my insurance or anything. It could come helpful from that angle, I think. But like in the case of the court itself, I'm not sure how I feel. like if the judge or the jury is just like a screen or like like eye or something. I'm not sure how I feel about that.
So this is a side thing. I won't save it for a future episode, but I feel like this is a small app that someone should just make. Take your medical insurance, dump it, the PDF into this thing, get the AI to have read a whole bunch of things, and then just chat with your AI. No need to message your insurance agent and say, like, is this covered or not? And then you just sort of like interact with the app, and that way be able to take it and then use that to challenge it when they said, no, this is not covered. So
could ChatGPT, I wonder if ChatGPT or Claude, like, with like the pro, the subscriptions, could they do that already? You think? Like if I was to upload the PDF and say, hey, give me an analysis, give me a breakdown of, like prompt it well enough. I wonder if that could do that already.
I'm going to give this a try after this episode. 2 weeks ago, my wife had, she went to the doc, they made her do a test, and then the test turned out to be not covered, right? And in a reimbursement model where the doctor did not do a pre-check, they charged me first and then they said, all right, get reimbursed. Insurer said, no, based on your policy, this is not covered. And then I was like stuck with the bill. And that was one instance, which is still fresh in my head as to when it's happened. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious to I don't know, upload something, give it a quick analysis, see what the output is.
I'm not
cool.
like this like public information nearly, because these contracts must be relatively cookie cutter that they're doing and copy pasting some things on pre-existing ailments and then putting it together. So I don't think there'll be too much sort of like private data in this. People could even like collect all of their insurance policies and put it together and then get the AI to review all of them and figure out which ones are actually good ones or not. All right, but we deviate too far. The AI juror idea is still sort of like out there. I think like you have something, Ken, in the small tribunals court, and then slowly as your AI matures and becomes better and better, and acceptability of that result becomes more. I think the acceptability of the result is also going to be something. I think like when you hear something from a judge, because I hear something from them, or a juror, like, is it because it's human and stuff like that? Do I feel like I might still not feel like it's fair? Like one party in a case always feels like it's not fair, but I guess.
Yeah. One last thought as I was thinking about, like, you're not going to, of course, jump to, there's a lot of legal and, government rules that red tape you're going to have to cut through in order to use this in an actual trial. But where I see it used, I went to a Upwork arbitration just a little while ago, and I think it would be great for that. Both sides describe. So all these, I think a lot of platforms that are, especially like two different people are on different sides of the marketplace, there's a lot of arbitration involved. So I would maybe start with that.
I mean, very quickly, I did read somewhere like Estonia has already implemented an AI-powered robot judge for small claims, like exactly the cases they were talking about. So I think there are some regions that are already considering or even have implemented pilot AI judges, AI juries in that sense.
Maybe you should start linking some of these things in the show notes, Ken, so that people can actually reach out and see like if that was the case. All right, so that was a interesting sort of like legal twist idea. And so Darryl, onto your second idea for the episode. Okay,
cool. This one's a bit of a personal one. So I've been in Vietnam for 2 years as a nomad, right? And, I've gone quite into some local subculture scenes over there, especially with the local coffee, foodie, art scenes. And, these guys, some of these cafes, communities and whatnot, they they host some pretty cool, really amazing, like really like just cool events and get-togethers. But I feel that, not many people know about these. I hang a lot with like expat friends or even just friends who do visit me in Saigon when they do come over, and they tell me they're like, oh, there's not many cool things happening in town. And I'm like, no way. Like, I totally disagree. I know there are things happening because I'm sort of in that circle, but these guys don't really, I don't know, like they don't really market it to it. I think that's a discovery element sort of like missing here, because these guys tend to post through their Instagram channels via stories or whatnot, and that sort of only gets reached out if you follow them or someone within the circle just so happened to repost it and you happen to know that person, or they go through the old Facebook events. It's not particularly cool to go on Facebook anymore for that, but it's still functional in that sense. But I think there's a space here for, social experiences that's happening around. And I think discovering these social experiences, because people have been, like, just even with my own startup, we're like sort of exploring the space of experiences and new gen people, like behaviors and whatnot. And I think people are willing to spend on experiences today. They're willing to go off as what they call like the side quest from like the main trip in itself, or even just like the daily kind of like, local things that you might do, but go off on a little side quest to have like a very memorable kind of night, immersing in a pretty cool community. So the idea here really is, a social events platform for people, experience seekers really eager to immerse in these local subcultures, local communities, so they can easily discover it and just join these personalized events and whatnot. And, the way I picture this idea is, really like think of it like a TikTok and Instagram feed, but except you can actually take actions with like joining the event or like RSVPing it in that sense, right? Because today, there's like Eventbrite, there's Meetup, like those, no one really goes to those to, discover anymore. Like Meetup sort of like died down. And have like personally for me, I think it's died down. Eventbrite's not particularly a platform where I go on to discover, right? Like if someone links an event via Eventbrite and that's the place to buy the ticket, sure, so be it. But I'm not browsing it openly. Luma is a really cool platform. I think Luma is an amazing events platform. The UX and UI, the app itself is amazing. But the events that are on Luma is, mostly VC, networking, startup kind of like those more professional events. There's no place, at least in Southeast Asia, like I feel like there's no event space sort of like, where I can discover cool things to do. So I think that's sort of the idea I have there.
Yeah. I think like, well, it reminded me, like, I think whether it was MFM or Greg's podcast, there was a guy who came on and he had built a sizable business so his strategy was similar to one of the ideas that we discussed last week, which was he would build micro sort of like newspaper, what's going on in a small city, and basically start to monetize that thing. What you're talking about is a common problem, and I totally agree, discovery. So I moved to Dubai like 7-8 months ago, and moving to a new city, it's always difficult for someone to be like, okay, where are the events posted? Then you have all the generic events that you don't want to go to, and you're like, where are the people hanging out? And then only through friends, then I found out about a couple of entrepreneurship groups, but not the, hey, here's the entrepreneur meetup, but, specific groups about like with people and stuff like that who are actually like entrepreneurs or who had done a few things. And then slowly you get to that subculture level that you're talking about. And because on the top, you just get these cursory sort of like events. And I really like the idea of that. So a twist on your idea could be like, what's happening in Saigon today? And then you just have these posts and then you can just follow a feed, right? And I think like putting it into like TikTok or Instagram or something like that is perfect, so that I can just follow that and I can find out about that. And then people can find out about what's happening in the city. Likewise. And then I think there's a lot of opportunity to populate that and monetize that as well, because once you get a certain number of followers on that thing, then sort of like doing the paid placement, etc., becomes a lot easier. And I like this city approach because then it isolates that idea into just Saigon or Dubai or Hanoi or Bangkok. And you could create a collective around that and then take it from there.
When I first saw you write this idea, I was thinking about it. Like, there's a video on YC's YouTube channel that talks about tarpit ideas. And so they talk about how many startups, even in, have been in YC in the past, and they kind of failed on this whole trying to get people together to meet up and local, like, it looks like an easy problem on the surface, but it's actually a lot more complex, right? So that's on the one hand. But then I think something's changed to change that. And that is TikTok. Like, I think the power of TikTok and AI and, creating these subcultures and following stuff, if you created the TikTok of local events, I think it would be super powerful. So I think the AI has gotten to the point where you could solve this problem well now. And you would have all these additional people just create, the same way like lots of new people create content on TikTok. I think lots of people would just create these smaller events and put them on there if there was a really powerful discovery mechanism that would bring people to them. So I really like it from that angle.
Yeah, I think from the discovery angle, like you said, I think certain things have changed to sort of like, like maybe answer the kind of like why now, right? So on one hand, the way people consume content today, like we can create if there can be a very smart TikTok type algorithm feed exactly, but for like local subculture, cool events, right? That could be one thing. On the other hand, it's also, you read these articles, these research points about, Gen Zs these days feeling, they're slowly becoming the loneliest generation, like in the sense, like this whole sense of digital isolation and whatnot, because they're too used to being glued to the screen. There are people that are, like I think really actively trying to, get out there, meet people, whether it's like little things, like maybe it's a board game kind of night gathering, but they've been finding it hard to find others. So if this platform can solve those little things, it could be something, and even if they're just small RSVP events in the beginning, just to have volume, right? Eventually you try to tackle like bigger events with like larger AOVs or attendance and then whatnot. I think it's something that you can build up. But yeah.
I think like the COVID snap was also something over there because you got this whole lockdown thing and then there was this whole resurgence back because everyone wanted to do this. Couple that with what you just mentioned, which is like this digital isolation, which is most definitely happening. And then you can see this in the rise of Reddit usage as well, where, just those subreddits and, niche topics, people getting together on that. And so they're doing this behavior online, whether you can translate that behavior to offline, even if you can get a small slice of that, I still think that it's good. And I think it has multi sort of like, interestingly over here, like who would be your ideal customer, Darryl? Would it be someone like Gen Z, like you, or like would it be someone like, I think Ken and I are Gen Y and Gen X, but I would still like use it and stuff like that. But who would be your ICP?
I think the primary audience would be what we call MZ, actually, like that kind of like, like 20 to like 34-year-olds. I think people want to go out, but not to say like you guys can't join. Of course, I think that's like complementary, secondary in that sense, right? But really to target like these guys who want to, I don't know, get together for a DJ night or something, or join some like really cool coffee workshop in Saigon, for example. I think that would be the ICP, sort of like people like the urban, like the urban MZ, like audience. But I think there's also potential for digital nomads. Like, I think there's a whole market there for nomads who, like you said yourself, like, when you move to Dubai, or even when I first moved to Singapore 3 years ago, I actually tried to use Meetup. There just wasn't enough cool things on there, right? And even when I first moved to Vietnam 2 years ago, I was looking at another app, which they've sort of I don't know, I think they died or something, but because I heard they were charging the suppliers too much, like too high of a commission. So the price itself was too high on the app, and then the suppliers didn't want to work with them anymore because of the commission fee. I think that's something that has to be considered as well. Even with Meetup, from what I understand, Meetup sort of like went a little quieter because they were charging their organizers an organizing fee. You know, like who wants to charge a fee to organize something, right? So I think the whole supply part is also key, you know, to really crack. Like, why would they want to host on this new platform? Is it because of the reach, or is there something like, you know, is there like a deeper value that they're getting out of it? Like a more advanced ticketing system or ways to get affiliates or whatnot.
One thing I'd add in the way I thought about the idea is when you think about if you were to create the TikTok of local events, like content and video are key. I think that is, you know, when you give every example that failed in the past or they're not really good, that is what they're missing. But the what's changed in the last few years is that a lot of people are willing to just turn the camera on themselves and put a public video. And that is the way to promote these events and create a good discovery mechanism. You know, if it's just like a static page and it's like this event there, blah, like that's boring, right? But if all of a sudden, like it's someone talking into the camera, like I'm going to do this great, you know, get together at this restaurant on Saturday, be there. That's to me what's staged.
And even if the event is not ready yet, but it's in the makings or something, I've seen a lot of these, like the new gen kind of support these type of, you know, like people creating something. Like there's a bagel cafe in KL that went so viral before it even opened because the cafe owner was just like day one of turning an old house into a new bagel shop. And she just vlogged like every day of her like renovating this old house, turning into a cafe, her baking it, like get ready with me 6 a.m., you know, like baking bagels and all that. And then boom, when it opened, she's got this huge following already. And it's been couple months now that's open, and I hear it's still packed and crowded. It's just gone viral. People want to support her in that sense. So I think Ken's right on that sense. Even he just filmed like, hey guys, I'm gonna host this pickleball session or something. I don't know. You know, like this is the court. I don't know. Maybe people might just think it's cool and they'll sign up for it.
Yeah, and one thing, so that exact story, I was watching My First Million podcast, and like they had the same story for, you know, new Airbnbs that they were creating and new this, that, like every single one. It was like the guy was good at creating the story before the launch on how he put it together, right? You know, using these videos. I almost think like there's also an agency that just does that for any new business that's opening because it's so powerful. Like you just hear that successful playbook again and again and again.
I love that idea. And I love the agency idea. Like if you're starting a new restaurant, here's a new launch site, because imagine how much people pay with launch marketing and all of that other stuff and things that they're not good at, like very low sort of like thing. And I've seen this playbook, like you said, run multiple times, but I always love it when I hear new stories like this. So hopefully we can find a link to that bagel shop, and then next time we're in KL, we can check it out also. So
yeah. I'll send you guys the link for sure. I'm yet to try it myself. I hear the line's just too long, but it looks, yeah.
It reminds me, like they didn't do so much of the video stuff, but there's a super viral chocolate in Dubai these days called Fixed Chocolate. And I just gone to Singapore a couple of weeks ago, and my friends were like, you have to get me this chocolate. This chocolate is delivery only. It opens at 5 p.m. and then they're sold out by 6, like every day. And it's some chocolate where the pistachio kunafa sort of like middle, but it's gone absolutely crazy. And it only went crazy because of TikTok. And it's crazy. So there we have it. I would love to see this in the world, though. If anyone wants to do this for Dubai or stuff like that, like please hit me up. I definitely think the city needs a lot more discovery sort of like things from the average events on the top. And there's actually quite a lot happening in the city as more and more people are coming to it. So yeah. Now I feel pretty like thinking about my idea, which goes a little more serious. I should have used a lighter idea for this session. But this came to me a couple of days ago. So a usual situation, I was talking to a startup in the portfolio. One of their key metrics had been trending down for a while. And we were trying to figure out, okay, like what led to this? What changed in the last 6-7 weeks? And we were going through the process of figuring out like what had we changed, what had happened. And then ultimately there was a decision that was made approximately like 8 weeks ago where they changed one of their core sort of like variables in their system. And that was it. Like, I think like in that moment in time that said like, okay, we're going to change this to this. So like a minimum order from here to here. And then it sort of like went downhill after that. It made me realize that, you know, companies are essentially made up of hundreds of decisions that we make on a regular basis, which adjusts their trajectory. But keeping track of all those decisions is not something that, at least in many of our startups, we do very methodically. When we make a really big change, like, okay, we've made the decision to launch an iOS app, maybe there will be a milestone. But when you make a decision to adjust pricing strategy, I don't know whether that's logged or not logged. And so that's where the idea of DecisionWise came up. And I was like, this is an app that the leadership or whoever they want invite everyone into. And when a key decision is made at the company, you sort of like figure out, okay, this is the decision that we're facing. Here are the options. Here's the option that we selected. This is our rationale behind it. And then remind me 3 months later about this so that we can revisit the decision. And I would love for this to go through because I feel like that's just a backlog of things that you could potentially do by looking through statement of work, like what was done. But this would be clearer because a lot of times decisions are also meta. And instead of doing a recurring subscription on this SaaS, I would just do it as a one-off payment for companies to do, because I really don't think that there's too much recurring that goes on. Plus, the frequency of usage probably shouldn't be super high. You shouldn't be logging in every decision that you make, but perhaps a decision that reaches a certain threshold. And I would charge like $5-10 a person that you invite. So if you have a company or a leadership team of 5 people, that would be $25. You pay it and it's yours to use. We'd need to sell quite a few of these to make $1 million. You would need to sell like whatever, like quite a few licenses to sell these. But essentially, that would be the business model. And yeah, this came up this week and I just wanted to log it over here because, yeah, it's something that I would really like to see exist in the world. And I would love to hear your ideas and thoughts because both of you run companies and in your own lives and at work, you make a lot of decisions that have a large...
One quick clarification. So it also gives you an immediate opinion on the decision or no, it just logs it in it?
Yeah, I think like in my model, it wouldn't give immediate sort of like opinion on the thing because I think like it would need to have a lot more context. But over time, like I think like you could train that sort of like data to see like how you're making certain decisions and whether that decision is being made quickly, rashly. Because I think a lot of the times when you're making decisions, especially in startups, because urgency and speed is paramount, a lot of people make decisions far quicker than they should make decisions without sort of like thinking through the options, thinking through the consequences of a decision. Because I think it's quite easy in the moment to make that pricing change of reduced price 20%, but there are second and third order consequences of those decisions as well. So yeah.
I think that's very interesting. I think you're definitely right. As a startup, I mean, without too much capacity, right? You're not really logging these decisions sort of anywhere. Like sometimes you're just texting your co-founder on a WhatsApp chat or something, and really like the way you're trying to find your decision tree is like, you know, the search chat function, right, on WhatsApp, and you're trying to find this keyword that you might not remember even, and it takes time to dig it up. And yeah, so I think that's interesting, like from a startup perspective. But I think my question though, from like if it's a big company, I'm sure they have enough employees, right? There'll be someone, I'm sure, dedicated just to, you know, really take care and maintain like some sort of decision log. I guess it's more useful for like smaller companies, startups and whatnot. Yeah, but when I saw you write this idea, I actually was thinking about it from a personal perspective, like as in like a decision log for my own personal everyday use almost. Like I was, like you yourself said, beyond the startups, your work, you're making decisions every day too, or like, oh, should I catch this flight, or should I, I was thinking some sort of like, if it could even be like a mind map kind of thing, as I log these thoughts or decision making thoughts, right, on this app. And maybe it could be, a voice thing, like, hey, I'm thinking of catching this flight on this day, or should I catch it on Sunday? I don't know if it's advanced enough to then create a mind map for you. Maybe once you log that in, it actually analyzes from Google for you and everything. Kind of gives you some basic research points to look at, at first. That was what I was thinking from a like a personal angle. But yeah, the startup angle too could be definitely very useful.
You'd be surprised though at bigger companies though, Darryl. Bigger companies are not tracking.
Yeah, I mean, no, they don't. No, I know.
You would be very surprised. One would imagine that bigger companies have all
think so.
figured out, but please, like, having to with them and work with them, like, no.
It's an email. It's an email Outlook thing. That's all it is.
Or boardroom meeting minutes, which would be the closest to high level sort of like decision making.
Yeah. And it'll be tabulated in the email, like today's meeting. Like that's it.
I think I'm closer to doing this than most people, in that I use this everything as a task method. And usually whatever I'm working on, I have like a strategy folder or something, and whatever decisions or major decisions I'm making, I actually do log a task, and then I'll leave it kind of in progress until at some point I consider it done or it's no longer relevant. And I find this super helpful. And I think seeing how some other managers, leaders do stuff, like they don't do that and they should, or something like it. And if this technology can do that, I think it's powerful, because I've seen so many leaders that today they're making this decision and they tell the team this, and then like Wednesday they say something else, and then next Monday they say something else, and like what they've said last week is completely forgotten, right? And like you do that for like a few months straight, and your team's kind of completely confused, and they realize, all right, let me just like focus on a couple things. So I think this is super helpful, and if you do it right.
I think Shane Parrish said like the quality of your decisions is like, the quality of your life sort of like thing. And it surprises me what Darryl is saying. Like, I completely agree. You could play this in single player mode and just run it for your life as well to keep track of decisions, right? Like, I think in my idea, it was like a decision tracker, which could be collaborative or single player mode, like you mentioned, Darryl. And it could be for smaller decisions as well, and for bigger ones. And I think like whenever you're caught in that sort of like thing, like, should you do this? Like in my world, it's like, should I invest in this company? Or should you partner with this person? Or should you do that? Or should you do this? I think like in the moment, you rationalize it in your mind in some shape or form. And you, of course, run through the options that you have and what you should and opportunity costs. But I think like just the process of writing it out or even talking it out, like you mentioned, would have like massive impact on thinking through that clearly.
One other angle that I think is powerful to this is I think a lot of people read books and they have mentors or like online people that they look up to. And I saw one AI that was a bit like this, where it was supposedly trained by like lots of top founders in terms of how they, their content and whatnot. And so it was giving you opinions that was supposedly trained by all these top founders. So I think there's also like some people are going to want to make decisions that are heavily influenced by a certain person.
I was going to say I agree to that because, when I was making the decision to, quit, like I was working at a big corp before in Australia, and I was making that decision to, kind of quit that, move to Singapore, break into the tech scene. I was watching people like, I was watching like the Steve Jobs, like Secret to Life video, or like even his Stanford graduation speech, or just other people like on the Bezos, like regret minimization framework, those kind of things. Those are things I I was digesting those content kind of just to, you know, help me make that big move. You know, at that time, it was a big move to me. So I think Ken, to some extent, is right. Like if there could be some form that like kind of just consolidate those kind of like decision frameworks and trees for me that I can also like see myself like publicly, that'd be amazing.
Instead of the team idea now, I think like the solo idea might be the way that someone who wants to build this would start. It would keep track of this. And what Ken mentioned was that, you know, because there's so much corpus of data on all of these people, let's just say like people of varying degrees of success. I would not only take tech people, but I would take like political figures or anyone who is made, or even just go back to philosophical figures as well and put that in and say like, hi, I'm planning to quit so there's the decision tracker, and then there's the conversation part, which is you're conversing with all of these people. Hi, I'm planning to quit my job and here's what I'm planning to do. And then you have like people giving you answers, like Naval Ravikant could give you answers. So Socrates could ask you a meta question on that and things like that. And then you could just at least think through the question, because I wonder how you thought through that decision of yours. Because let's face it, a lot of people listening to this podcast probably might be in your position, right? They're working at a company right now. They might not be the happiest they are, and they're thinking that maybe one of these ideas or this other idea I have is the one that I want to pursue. Like, what was your thinking through that? Did you make, like, how did you come to the difficult decision to quit the job?
Yeah, for me, it was more just, I think ultimately it came down to just like the whole regrets framework. Like just thinking about it in a sense that, okay, if I were to make this move and I was to do this for like the next 5 years, even just like a short time frame, 3 to 5 years, and let's say everything doesn't work out, what's the worst that could happen? I go back to Australia, I go back to the same industry, the same company, maybe, you know, and I don't really, I gain more than I lose. That was sort of like what I got out of like, you know, reading like Bezos' framework, you know, just like Steve Jobs with the classic, you know, like stay hungry, stay foolish and whatnot. That's kind of like what I digested out of that. And that's what made me make that move. But I think at the end of the day, everyone digests things differently. You know, I've talked to friends who've tried to, you know, make the same move. I tell them the same things, but, you know, they might not be so open to it versus me, right? Or it takes someone a bit longer to really digest it in that sense. So, yeah.
Well, this took an interesting turn. I liked it.
Okay, one last thought I had on that is, I was watching this YouTube of this young Gen Zer yesterday talk about, he's got a successful SaaS. He was creating lots of successful videos, like making a lot of revenue on YouTube, and before that Snap. And I was so, wow, like his mindset's very different. He's just got this knack for how to create viral content and create a business around it. And for me, if I could get him giving me advice on how he thinks as I'm doing my own business, that to me is so much more valuable than Jeff Bezos. You know, Jeff Bezos created Amazon, 20, 30 years ago. The situation was completely different. Like whatever he says is well documented. Like that's not a differentiator. But if I have this 23-year-old kid telling me how to create these new kind of content-based businesses, that's powerful. And I think there's something there as well.
Yeah, I agree to that too. Like running my own, like before that, you know, like looking at those big figures to make those like life decision kind of move. But now running my own startup, you know, exactly like Ken said, if I can dig into this guy's brain as to how he makes things go content, I'd happily pay for that, man. Like the one-time cost, $20. If you give me like a 2-month free trial just to have a play around and I think it's useful, I'm not going to complain about a $20 one-time cost, even for a personal, not even a company level, but like a personal thing.
I think the business model for this would be like, it's free to track your decisions if you play solo. And then if you want to chat with the AI business to give you feedback, that's what you pay for. And that way you can always keep your subscription when you don't want to make too many sort of like things. You could either pay for conversations, because these days I was watching Thibaut, the guy Mark Lutz talk about with Greg, and I completely agree with him on the fact that subscriptions are dead now. Like, I feel like I am quite allergic to when someone is trying to charge a subscription for a small product, because I don't know whether I'm going to use it or not. Like, one-time fees or things like that based on usage is so much more that I'm vibing with now. And then you've got to decide how big the market really is and then take it from there. All right, cool. Well, that was a really interesting episode. We started with a gaming idea, GG.ez, to figure out how to get all the gamers together and see how that could be turned into a business. Then we talked about the AI juror, which I think like we reached a pretty good consensus as to how we could start that sort of like business. Darryl then shared with us the idea about like, you know, the whole mashup between TikTok and Luma and sort of like events discovery bottom up from social platforms. And then to conclude it all, we sort of like did a whole meta idea, which is on decision tracking and creating an app that would help keep track of all the decisions. You know, what's been consistent over the last couple of weeks is the variety of ideas. And I think like it gives something to everyone for when they're hopefully watching this. So thank you very much, Darryl, for coming on. And I hope that we see you again on the podcast.
No worries. Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks,
Cool.
Darryl.
Thanks, Ken.
Cool.
All right.